The New England Patriots just got thrown another curveball. Let's talk about it. My name is Aaron. As always, I appreciate you watching. This is Sports Talk Patriots. Do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button down low. Hit the like, comment, bell, whatever you want to do. I'd truly appreciate it. But that being said, the New England Patriots leading up to the NFL season have been thrown curveball after curveball. We've talked about figuring out the offensive line. We've talked about Judon. We've talked about Gotcha. We've talked about a bunch of different things where they're trying to figure out what are we going to do leading up to the 2024 NFL season. And now this is almost like a knuckle curve. This one is wild. Christian Barmore, the big time, arguably one of the best, if not the best, I'm biased, defensive tackles in the NFL, just signed a huge contract not long ago, was diagnosed with blood clots over the weekend. So the big question is, we know that news, but the big question now is, okay, one, is he going to be okay? Two, what's the return look like? So first of all, they talk about how Gerard Mayo has talked about how he's been treated well, and they expect a full recovery, and it should be very good. Now, the big question is when it comes to blood clots, and I have not found anywhere where specifically the blood clot was. If you remember, David Andrews had a blood clot in his lungs. I can't exactly remember how long it took to get him back. It just all depends, because the biggest factor is when you have blood clots, they put you on blood thinners. And so blood thinners, if you did not know, so I'm gonna let you know, is when you're on blood thinners, the big issue is your blood does not clot. And so there's a massive issue with that. And so for instance, if you get cut, you just bleed, you bleed. It's not good. So especially if it's a very significant cut, you got to go to the hospital and get that figured out. The reason I know that is my father-in-law, he has a rare disease called factor V, and so he's been on blood thinners most of his life. And so even if he cuts himself shaving, it's not ideal. So that is, you're like, we don't care about your whole father-in-law. That's fine. I'm going to tell you anyways. So the big question is, what does that timetable look like? So they say he's out indefinitely. Yeah, for sure. Training camp, probably preseason. And that's fine. I think he's going to come back. He's going to be all right. But the biggest thing that I saw was, here we go, 6 months or longer. So again, on blood thinners. And so luckily they were able to spot this, because if you have a blood clot and, it gets to your heart or something, it can be bad. So it's good that they caught it. They've praised the athletic training team, the trainer, which is awesome. And so the big thing is for Barmore to get healthy and not rush back. And I think he's going to do just that, especially after kind of a scare like this. I don't see him trying to get back anytime soon. And so that being said, I think the big question is how long does he have to be on these blood thinners? Because then again, if it's a long time and a continual process, then it's going to be longer and longer. So that return date is going to keep getting pushed out and more and more. So I think when it comes down to it, again, no need to rush him. Praying for a speedy recovery, and I hope he comes back healthy, better than ever, and maybe he just needs some time to relax and focus on the season ahead. Who knows? But that being said, here it is. Yep, David Andrews. I knew I saw this somewhere, with blood clots in his lungs, and so it's interesting to see. So again, very random for a 25-year-old to have blood clots. Praying for him. Hope he gets better. That being said, you look into who's the next up. So you have Watts, and you have I'm going to say this right. I've always butchered this name. Aquala. There we go. Boom. Aquala. So right here you have Watts and Aquala, both veterans, older guys with experience. So here's Watts, just to give you an idea. And so for the Bears, for the Vikings, he was drafted by the Vikings, 6th-round pick out of Arkansas. If you look at his sacks and you kind of look at his stats, and you see this as more of the typical kind of defensive tackle stats. Obviously, you look at Barmore, there's a reason he got paid. There's a reason he's arguably one of the best defensive tackles in the league, is because he is so dominant. He is quick for his size. It's unreal. He has so much power. And so, and his stats show that when you're a defensive tackle and you're getting 8.5 sacks, that is very impressive. And so you have Watts, and then you have Aquala. And so Aquala, been on the Patriots longer. Then again, didn't play a ton, the past handful of years, more of almost like a rotational player. And I see that in Watts as well. And so the big question is kind of like who, depending on how long he is out, who is going to take the reins kind of at that position, that starting defensive tackle position for Barmore, if that is the case, if that's how long they have to take. I want you to comment below, who do you think should take those reins, and what that might look like. Now, there's a bunch of younger guys as well. And so I'm going to be honest with you, kind of there's a reason I didn't add all those guys on here, just because it didn't seem like they were too promising. Then again, they just signed that Josiah Bronson. He came out of the UFL. Who knows if you're making head turns in the UFL, heads turn and you're in the UFL, it's not like every day someone's getting picked up from that league. So that could be potential. But the biggest thing is Christian Barmore needs to come back and needs to come back healthy. So that being said, you're up to date. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is takeaways from training camp. Here we go. Got this pulled up for you. And so this is big, and we've talked about this a ton. Easily one of the biggest question marks on the New England Patriots is the offensive line. What's it going to look like? How are they switching it up? So apparently for 2 consecutive days, they've had Wallace staying at left tackle, which is interesting, and Okorafor at right tackle. And so then that means Nwenu is playing right guard, most likely. City So left guard, and then David Andrews still at center. And so the big question is it going to stay like that? Are they feeling comfortable like that? Or is it just something like, hey, we need to take a couple days just to see how this looks? But what would be awesome is if Wallace, and I really think, again, you look at this past draft. In this past draft, in the first handful of rounds, there were a lot of specialty players taken. So I'm talking quarterbacks, wide receivers, and then it even took forever for like some big time defensive players, where in other years I feel like these defensive players probably would have been drafted higher, but there was such a need for these specialty players that they were just flying off the board. And so I think that pushed some other players like back in the draft, where in other years they would have probably been drafted higher. And I think that for Caden Wallace, again, proven player out of Penn State, he started, golly, most of his career there. So, if he can transition to the NFL well, that would be a steal. And so I think that's big news as well coming out of training camp, especially as they get pads on. Just awesome to hear. What do you guys think of the whole Barmore situation? Just comment below. Is there someone that you think will do a good job stepping in his place, depending on how long he's gone? And then as well, what do you think about this offensive line? Do you think this is it trending in the right direction? We'll say that. Do you think it's trending in the right direction? Yes or no? Comment below. I appreciate you guys. Again, my name is Aaron, Sports Talk Patriots. I'll see you guys later. Peace.